My name is Mary Lou Tompkins, and I live out on Allen Road where it's nice and quiet, and I just love to hear our rooster crow in the morning. And two houses down the road, there's a white donkey, and he brays. I just love the sound of the country, and it seems to just go with clay. Clay is earth and very, very old, and it just seems like I'm in the right place at the right time, and I keep wondering why I pick out anything as small as beads to do. Well, um, I think it's because there's a spiritual thing going on here. When I make a bead, I puncture holes going in two directions so that the person who designs with the bead can be creative. In other words, the creative works like a string of beads, and I just love that about making beads. Here's a 10-pound bag of clay. Now, every week, I create the universe out of this 10-pound bag of clay. And when all the creatures and all the people are finished, they can be stored in a plastic shoebox. Now, that's because they're all beads, and they all have faces. There's no two alike. Now, speaking of no two alike, I have to tell you about the Gary Larson card that my daughter gave me for my birthday. It was from the far side, and the front of the card had just masses of clouds, and there was a table there, very much like I work on, and a whole pot of clay. And then to one side, there was God. He was making clay snakes, and Gary Larson wrote at the bottom, and God created the snake. Then God said, these snakes are really easy. They're a cinch to do. Well, I was really curious about what that card said on the inside, because I'm never quite sure whether the message on the inside is a compliment or not. Well, I turned it to the inside, and it said, they broke the mold after they made you. Well, I hope so. Now, I never use molds myself, just absolutely never, and not patterns either. Sometimes I sort of fall into a formula. I make so many of these faces, but sometimes I just feel I would like to make just one bead that actually looks like somebody. Next door to me, I have a neighbor that I just dearly love, Carol. And Carol, at 80, has this beautiful, innocent face. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make a bead that's like Carol. So I really gave it everything I had, and I rolled her out. And after a while, I put on my glasses to see what the Carol bead looked like. Well, to my surprise, it wasn't Carol. It was a goddess. I just began to wonder, is Carol like a closet goddess? Uh, I just wondered if clay actually tells the truth about people, maybe tells the true nature of your subject. Now, I really like to do men's faces too, and it's a funny thing, in my neighborhood, all the men are named Ed. But there's this one Ed. He's just outrageous. He just, well, I thought, boy, what a challenge it would be to make a bead that looked exactly like Ed. So, again, I started with a little ball of clay, and I worked and I worked and I worked, and so then I put my glasses on to see what I had made, and to the surprise of my life, the bead looked for all the world like a Viking. And there was this little mermaid sort of attached to Ed's hip. And I thought, does outrageous Ed, have the soul of a Viking? Well, how would I ever know? But, later I did get a clue. It was about 2 days after my second cataract operation, and Ed and I were both out on Allen Road at our respective mailboxes collecting our mail. And Ed knew that I had just had this cataract operation, and he yelled over at me. Now, Ed is deaf like I am, so he always yells, and it's a good thing. But he yelled, "Can you see me? Can you see me?" Well, I could see sort of a hazy outline of Ed, and or someone. And so then he said, "Do you know me? Do you recognize me?" Then he said, "Okay, who am I?" I said, "Robert Redford?" Well, you know, Ed even yells at God. I heard Ed say, "Oh God, please don't let Mary Lou improve any." Well, have I improved or not? Um, I, I just keep telling people that I'm at the top of my game. But you know, even if I am at the top of my game, I have these little nagging insecurities. And sometimes I think, um, if I just had one thing in this clay business that I could just count on, that every time it was so, it was always so. I made up my mind I would never, never in my life make a self-portrait. But I'll leave you with this one last little thought, and that is, in the time that we chatted here, I memorized your face. My name is Mary Lou Tompkins.